All right, let's get to our spot on section, I guess we could call it. So teams that we were pretty bang on about. There are three teams in this category: the Hurricanes, the Islanders, and the Penguins. So we'll start with Carolina, guys. 61 points on the season. They've won 3 in a row, 7-2-1 in their last 10. Kind of had a bit of a rocky start, but they certainly look like contenders again. I remember, a while back, they had a really rough Western Canadian road trip. And at that time, we were wondering, like, is Carolina going to fall off and potentially not be a playoff team? But that just is not going to happen. They look like a contender again for sure. What do we have to say about the Hurricanes, who we were pretty spot on about, and no surprise there?
Yeah, they definitely worried us early on this year, but they're in full stride now. And it's interesting that they're not really doing it in the way that we're used to. Usually it's, they're top 3 in goals against average, and then, somewhere in the middle of the pack for goal scoring. Well, it's kind of a more balanced approach this year. They're scoring more goals. They haven't been as locked down defensively as they have been in the past. And I mean, goaltending certainly not helping them out in that aspect, but it's more of a balanced approach, and it's working out for them so far. Sebastian Aho has been an absolute dog. He's been
doesn't get enough
fantasy, and definitely not enough credit for that guy. What's really spurring this team ahead is their special teams, and it's great. Second in PK, fourth in power play, and that's it cuts out the need for good defense and good goaltending when you're on the power play or when you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I don't have much to say about Carolina because we were spot on. This is kind of how we expected them to perform and how we expect them to sort of finish in this division. Top 3, they'll play someone in the playoffs and maybe have home ice advantage. Like, that would be the goal for this team. But, the goal really is to just get in and make a run and win some games in a conference final, really. Like, that's, they haven't done that in a long time. So this team is where we expected them to be. I would like to push back a little bit, Casey, on you saying they're doing it slightly differently, because I feel like the team is still defending really, really well. And the numbers back that up. They've allowed the second most, or the second fewest, expected goals against. It's just they haven't had any goaltending this year. They've had like 6 guys play for them, and none have been good at all. Like, Antti Raanta has been the worst of the bunch. Freddie Anderson has been injured or is dealing with something. I don't know exactly the specifics of his situation, but we know that both him and Raanta have been injury prone in the past. But like, Pyotr Kochetkov has played 23 games and he's minus in goal saved above expected. Spencer Martin, he's played 14 games, also a minus. All I got to say about their goaltending situation is, man, like, I bet they're pretty happy they kept 3 guys instead of committing to 1 or 2 of them and kind of rolling the dice on a backup, like a lot of teams have done. And I feel like we've talked about this before, but I wanted to bring it up again. This is the new NHL. More teams are going to be carrying 3 goaltenders. My Maple Leafs will be doing it, at least until they have to send someone down to clear cap space. But in the new NHL, man, a third goalie who is either 1, waiver flexible, or 2, willing to be a third and carried with the team full time. Those guys are extremely, extremely valuable to have. And Carolina is kind of showing us, not that any of them have been particularly good, but it's just, having different options is always key. And Carolina, I feel like, started that years ago.
Yeah, they sure did. And also, like, it avoids the whole e-bug situation, right?
Yeah.
Like, carrying a third goaltender. And Frank Saravalli, I know, is a guy out there who gets pretty heated about the whole e-bug situation, pulling a guy off the street, essentially, and coming into, to play a little bit in a game. And we've seen some great stories and great moments, but at the end of the day, like, this is pro sports, and you have to be able to have a third goaltender there in case of emergency, and so that's a reason for it as well. But yeah, you need depth at that position. Goalies voodoo, as we've talked about. It's important to carry three, and we're going to see more teams doing that for sure. I do like the Spencer Martin waiver claim. He was pretty good in Columbus, and going back to last year in Vancouver. But all in all, talking about Carolina, I mean, they're a well-coached team. Sebastian Aho, again, that is a guy who does not get enough credit. I was looking at the Hurricanes stat leaders before we came on here, and he's been absolutely fantastic. So doesn't get enough credit for sure. That blue line is deep. You know, a guy like Brady Shea, I think, has really stood out this year. He's played great. Dmitry Orlov gets an overtime winner the other night, a big cap hit for him, but that's a short-term deal. And then some of their younger players, like really taking steps forward. Seth Jarvis is second in scoring on this team. So I think they've got a lot of depth. They'll look to add, on the margins at the deadline, and they're a contender for sure. We'll just have to see if they can get over that hurdle, which is the Eastern Conference Finals. It just seems to bite this team every single time they get there.
I don't feel bad for them one bit, if I'm being honest.